Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. This is our horror movie show here at Melt Fuzz. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we are unfortunately going to talk about Rings, which is the new film. The new entry into the Ring franchise from the US, as opposed to the Japanese Ring franchise, which is currently still going on. In fact, last week we just reviewed Sadako versus Kayako, which is the Japanese versus movie, which is the Ring Girl versus the Grudge Girl. But of course, if you watch the American Ring movies, the girl's called Samara. And we have reviewed the past two movies in this franchise. The first one, which is okay, but it's not aged very well. A lot of people seem to like it, but we were kind of down on it when we watched it again for this.
For most people that are really big into it, I would ask them, have you watched it recently?
And have you watched the original?
Yes.
Those are the two questions I think are worth asking, because I feel like if you watch it again through modern eyes and you go watch the Japanese version, you're probably going to have a different opinion. Yeah. Then we watched the second one, which I'd never seen before, and it was the absolute epitome of dog shit. It was horrendous. And then we have Rings, which was originally meant to be released September, October time, something. I think it was October.
I think it was supposed to be like around the Halloween time.
It was October, but you've seen it in like September at a preview screening.
Yeah, I went to a test screening of it. Like I think it was late September, maybe early October. But yeah, if you want to feel bad for me, I did have to see this twice. Yeah,
it'd been too long, so Tim had to go see it again. And what was funny is that I'm thinking it was September. Because after you've seen the preview screening or the test screening, they delayed it. Because it was you seen it before they delayed it.
That's right.
We still thought it was going to be October, and I thought, oh well, that's fine. I'll see it a few weeks later, and we'll talk about it.
We'll do the.
But unfortunately, they pushed it to February, and you had to go see it again because it had been too long. So Tim already knew what he was in for. Got into this this week. So we'll start spoiler free, although we probably won't keep that going for very long because it's an absolute piece of trash. So we're probably just going to dive in pretty quickly, but I will warn you before we go into spoilers. So yeah, it's set present day, obviously. Movies like this make me feel old because at one point they say, oh, this happened 13 years ago, and I'm like, wait, that can't be right, because that would be in this year, and the first movie was, oh wait, the first movie's 15 years old now. Shit, I'm old. I'm not really. I was like 13 when the first one came out. No, I'm not that old.
Yeah, but it's still like once you start getting into like time frames that are like over like 10 years old, it starts feeling like, wow, like things are moving fast.
What gets me, Tim, is when you've got a main character and they do the whole flashback to when they were in like, middle school to like set up some of their character backstory, and the year that it comes up, it'll be like later than I was at school, so the main characters are now younger than me, and that weirds me out. I was like, oh crap, I'm getting old now. This is strange. Stop it right now.
I can't tell if you're exasperated or if you just.
The spoiler-free version of this review is as follows. Acting's terrible, plot is dumb, they force all this extra backstory in, because of course they do. It's such a typical sequel. It feels like a direct-to-video sequel. This does not belong in theaters at all.
No, not at all. Hence the February release.
Oh,
like January and February is this weird time where like even if it's in theaters, it doesn't count as like theaters. Like all this stuff that doesn't belong is just being thrust there.
Yeah, there's so much crap in January and February, it is unreal. I mean, you get the odd gem, of course. Like, It Follows is the classic example I always bring up, but this sucks. It just sucks. I don't even know it. I was bored. In the theatre, it was me, one couple was like 3 rows down from me, and that was it.
Pete, let me tell you a quick story that is probably going to be more entertaining than the entirety of the movie. I went to see this at the movie theater near my house, which is called the ArcLight. It's kind of if you're in California, it's a chain out here. It's a little fancier, maybe like a little more upscale. Like, it has reserved seating and stadium style seats and everything.
For the upper class person who wants to see Rings at the theater.
Yeah. So before every movie, they'll have one of the employees will come out and they'll give like a little intro to the movie. Like, you know, even before the trailers or anything starts, they'll come out and they'll be like, "Hey, everybody, you're here to see Rings. This movie stars blah, 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 and has a runtime of blah, blah, blah."
The only time I've seen that happen is at midnight showings. I've never seen that for a regular screening.
For this theater, they do it for every movie. Like, that's...
I think I know where the story's going. I've got a guess, but...
Well, here's what I found out yesterday is they will still do that even if you're the only person in the theater.
Okay, that's not where I thought it was going. I thought it was going where the employee was going to like basically tell you the movie sucks.
Oh no, intro. It's I think he knew, and if it wasn't obvious, the fact that I was the only one in the theaters was probably a little bit of a clue. But I was also sitting in the back, and he's like up in the front on the floor, and I'm in like the back, so there's a difference in distance as well as height. So it's just this guy
shouting
very far from me, yelling at me, and he was like, "Oh, so have you been here before?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "So you know like how we do an intro, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I'm just gonna do it." And then he goes into his intro and it's all like, "Oh, we'd appreciate it if you don't talk during the movie." And I'm like, the only one here.
I could literally take my clothes off and no one would care. Oh, yeah. It's funny because when I went to see Bye Bye Man, I was the only person. With this though, there was two other people. There was a couple who were kind of just verging on elderly, but not quite, kind of like at 50-ish kind of age. And
the perfect demographic for this movie.
I know, right? And they were quiet throughout. They gave me no trouble.
Yeah. So I will say a few people did trickle in, but after like the trailers and stuff started. But I've never actually. I don't think I've ever had the experience of having the complete theater to myself. I always get like one or two other people, and I always wish like, oh, just one time. I wish it was just me. But
it seems to happen to me. Well, I think it's just because of where I live. If I go like during the day when most people are at work, kids are at school, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if it's a movie that's like this, it tends to be empty, like completely empty. There's just no one going at like, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday to see Rings. Except me, obviously. Today I didn't go at 2 a.m. I went a bit later. 2 p.m. 11 a.m. I said 11 a.m. I didn't go at 11 a.m. Sometimes I go around that time. Today it was a little bit later in the afternoon. So it's good to know that when you're almost in the evening that I get 2 extra people for Rings. But the point I'm making is that when I typically go during that time in the day is for movies like this, for horror movies, because I think Ouija, Origin of Evil, I was also on my own. It's almost a regular thing for certain types of movies where it's like, I know I'm going to get the theatre to myself for that. Or at least close to.
Does it make you feel like kind of like a weirdo or like a creep or anything?
No, it doesn't. Nah, honestly, it tends to always happen with bad movies though, and I feel like it accents how shitty the whole thing feels because I'm just there on my own, and I feel like it makes me feel pathetic. Not because I don't mind going. I go to the movies with my own all the time. It's just a normal thing for me, but because I'm like the only person in the room, it's like no one else even cares to see this piece of shit, and I'm here. I actually got here through the cold, whatever. I'm here by myself. No one else is. I could fart as loud as I want. I can check my phone whenever I want because there's no one else here, and it's just sad because it means I'm there to see something terrible that no one cares about.
Like thousands of people that made a better decision than you in that moment.
Well, nah, because there's thousands of people who were involved in the making of this film. They all did not make a better decision than me.
True. Very true. I guess we should actually talk about the movie, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, so I will just go into spoilers. I will say this.
Yeah, I will. If we're going into spoilers, just for the little bit of the spoiler-free section, I'll just echo your sentiments if it wasn't clear that I hated this movie as well.
I would just add, it's funny, as negative as we're being, still not as bad as the Bye My Man. It's not.
I didn't think about it, but yeah, I'd have to agree with that. At least there is some level of coherence and stuff going on here.
It wasn't. I mean, the plot was terrible, and I hated it. But it wasn't just spinning its wheels.
Actually, I'll give it a little bit of credit for the movie. I feel like it was kind of ambitious, which like I feel like I understood some of the stuff they were going for and trying to do, and like none of it worked out. It was all awful, but I did understand what they were kind of trying to go for. You know what I mean? Like,
I think I do. There's a part of it. We'll get into spoilers. So full spoilers for this point on for Rings.
Okay.
And I think I know what part you're kind of talking about. So I assume then, but the part you're talking about where you kind of appreciated what they were trying to do is the idea that someone's actually like discovered this is a thing, this whole videotape curse is a thing. So they actually set up a research project and have like a command center where they're counting down to various people, and they're actually putting people in place to have the tape copied and shown to them so that everyone keeps living.
Yeah, like that stuff. Like, I didn't like it in this movie, but I could see how that angle, could be interesting. Like the idea of like a new tape or the tape evolving. Oh
no, I hated that part. We'll get to that later. But here's my thing about that whole idea, though. This whole idea that this professor, who's played by the guy from The Big Bang Theory,
which like I don't know if to me it just felt so obvious because of him being on The Big Bang Theory that he was just like trying so hard to be like, hey, look, I'm not always a nerd. I can play like a cool professor who smokes a joint and like you know what I mean? Like I don't know. It felt like he was trying so hard.
You say that, but he was still the nerdy guy who was like, oh, a VHS player? Oh, we're going to grab that. I want to buy this. That's how the movie opens. Well, actually, that's the second scene. I do apologize. There's a plane sequence first. We'll get to that in a second.
Which is crazy.
Anyway, what was I going to say? Yes, this whole idea of the professor setting up this research thing, and there's all these people in on it, and they're doing all these tests, and people are specifically watching it, but they've got people in line, which they call tails. Your tail is the next person who's going to watch it, that you're going to show them it to, so that you're free from the curse, because we established that rule in the first movie. I both like it. I like the core idea of it, but I also hate it. And the reason for that is, I like it because it's kind of a logical thing where anyone who's seen the first movie goes, well, what if people did this? What if people just made sure there was always someone to show it to? It's kind of an expansion of like the sort of, the asshole who overthinks it and logically says, oh, what if this and this and this, and then that's it fixed. There's no problem. No one would die from this ever because we could just do this. There's always that cynical asshole who works it out. And that's kind of what this is a portrayal of, is the actual enactment of that. Mm-hmm. I hate it though, because it just kind of robs the entire thing of any dread, mystery, or horror. Like, the tape's meaningless after all this crap. Meaningless.
I mean, if there's one thing I've learned about this franchise after rewatching all the old ones and seeing this, it's that
there should have only been one.
Well, definitely that. But honestly, I just like the very, very core concept of this cursed videotape that kills you after you watch it. Like, anytime they do any like deeper digging or expanding upon it, it loses all like mystery or creepiness to it, and it's just like the further and further they go, the worse and worse it gets for me.
Yeah, it's and they always do it. It was the same thing. I mean, it's not the exact same plot, obviously, but it's the same thing we hated in The Ring 2, is they tried to do this whole thing where Samara's trying to possess the sun, and we go into all this extra stuff that doesn't feel like a Ring movie. At least this feels a bit more like a Ring movie in that it follows the whole idea that they're investigating what's going on, but they have to somehow come up with a new thing to investigate, because we've already investigated Samara. We did that in the first movie. So they had to find a way to add more onto it, which is what most of the movie ends up being. In fact, Joe, my biggest complaint outside of the typical, the acting's terrible, which it is, and the plot being terrible, which it is, and again, we're going to get to all that, It's
I mean,
actually
there's so much I could guess right now.
Yeah.
The characters, the CGI.
no, it's actually simpler than that. I'm going to take all that away. Like, don't worry,
Okay.
all of that's bad, and we're going to talk about all of it. But the worst part of this movie is once they start investigating stuff, you completely forget that they're on a clock. Like the girl, watches the tape and she gets the phone call 7 days. Rest of the movie, like the characters don't even seem concerned that she's going to die in 7 days. It never feels like it comes up. You know, the original movie had that thing where each day it was like day 2, day 3, and it was like ticking time bomb. The whole thing was counting down because we knew the death was coming, and it feels like the characters don't care.
Yeah.
They never bring it up. It's weird. It never felt like it was present throughout the movie, and there was like, there's no urgency to this. There's no tension. There's no anything, and it kind of robs the Ring of what made the Ring good in the first place.
You know what started making me laugh? And I forget if I mentioned this in any of the other movies, and I know obviously this isn't what happens, but anytime someone watches the tape, I just get this like image of Samara like going, "Oh crap, someone watched it. I better," like going to grab a phone so that she can call him. Like what if she's just hanging out in her well and just like, "Oh, someone watched it," and like has to try to find a phone real quick.
I don't think you have brought that up before. So fair. If you hear any scratching noises, by the way, my cat's around and doing weird things. There's a box outside and he's playing with it. You know what cats are like with boxes? They love that stuff.
Yeah.
For some...
I got an Amazon shipment the other day and my cats have been going crazy. Let me just propose something real quick because you already brought up like 50 different things I want to touch on. Well, so should we just kind of start at the beginning and go?
I love how you jumped in, stopped me from talking when the very thing I was going to say. Let's start from the start and go through the plot.
Perfect. All right. It opens with a ghost crashing a ship, or not a ship, a
ship. I was like, Tim, you watched a different cut from me. So this guy on the plane. And he's talking to this random girl. He's like, "Oh, have you ever heard of this curse?" Because he's all nervous. You think maybe he's nervous about flying or whatever, normal things. And he explains the rules of the tape. It's basically exposition for anyone who's never seen a Ring movie. About the tape, about the rule, the phone call, all the rest of it. And he's like, "Oh, tonight's the night I'm supposed to die." And he goes off to the bathroom and he gets like a nosebleed and he's creeped out. And then this random girl that he doesn't know, this is just like a passenger who started talking to, her friend comes back, presumably from the bathroom or whatever. And she is like, "Oh, what was that about?" And he's like, "Oh, it turns out that cute guy that's sitting with us is a crazy person. And he was talking about this cursed videotape." And then her friend goes, "What? Cursed videotape?" And it turns out that she's also watched it. Because she comes up to him and starts talking about it. He's like, "I watched it too. I only have X number of days left." And he's like, "Well, I'm supposed to die just now." And I'm like, that's just a random girl on the plane.
I couldn't handle the believability of this. And now a couple of things I want to bring up. First of all, he says that some girl he met at a party in Seattle showed it to him. Which, so I was just trying to think if there was any connection, like, oh, was that be maybe one of the characters from the first movie or something? Or I don't know.
I mean, just because the characters from the first movie are all like in the 40s now. Possibly 50s.
Good point.
What age is Naomi Watts? She's probably pushing her late 40s by now.
I'm glad that she, well, I don't know if they contacted her, but if they did, good on her for not making an appearance in this movie.
Saying piss off. I hated the second one. Go away.
Yeah. But secondly, all right, so the fact that another girl on the plane had also watched the tape was very annoying. But she knows to make a copy, though. She's like telling him, like, "Did you make a copy? Did you make a copy?" And
that's right. Like, yeah, that's right. She'd made a copy, but so she was like, yeah.
So presumably someone made her watch it, but was nice enough to tell her like how to not die, which means whoever like showed this guy it must have been like a huge jerk.
Yeah. And it's funny though, because she gets all hectic about it. And it turns out the reason why she's worried is because, as it turns out, because Samara shows up on the plane and to take this guy out, it results in the entire plane crashing. And I guess because the only screen it could come out of was like in the cockpit.
Yeah.
Even though there's a scene in the trailer where the video plays in all of the screens, like all the little movie screens in the back of the seats.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, there you go.
I was just gonna say, even the movie opens with it zooms out from the Paramount logo onto the screens that are at the back of everyone's seats.
But where was that shot in the movie? Like, because you watch the trailer and you think, oh, it's going to play to everyone on the plane and they're all going to be cursed, but that's not there. They just he just comes out the bathroom and he sees Samara coming out the screen. There's a quick cut to the close up of his eye, and it just cuts to the next scene. It doesn't cut to the title. This is important. No. The title doesn't appear at the end of this scene. The title appears at the end of another couple of scenes. This isn't the cut to Rings. The Rings title comes later, which is really goddamn weird. But the worst thing though is how this is edited. It doesn't edit. It doesn't finish like a proper cliffhanger. You see him. It's not like it feels like she's crawling towards him, whatever. It just does this quick cut that feels like they didn't have enough footage, and they just did this quick cut. So right away, I'm like, okay, this is janky. This doesn't feel like it's edited properly. Now, admittedly, I don't think the rest of the movie's poorly edited, and it's not well edited, but it's not.
I think there was some scenes, but
well, it's not poorly edited in the same way that the Darkness was poorly edited, because that was like a shambles, where simple things weren't working. The editing in this is sometimes really bad, but not because of that. It's bad because they're trying to create jump scares, or they're trying to create, there's a ghosty thing happening, but then it's not there, so it feels cheap, and there's all that going on.
Yeah.
But
now, what I don't understand is, like, why she had to take the whole plane down. Like, couldn't she have just, like, gone up to him and do the thing where, they face gets all twisted and they fall to the floor and stuff? I don't know, it just seems like a weird thing to be like, I'm going to take this whole thing down. And I don't know, I guess because it's like, well, she had to come out of the screen. That's the only screen. But it's like, I don't know, she couldn't have come out of like his mirror or something. She obviously has like a lot of different powers.
Yeah, which have no explanation. That's one of my big problems is there's no rules. Like, stuff just keeps happening.
Yeah.
Main character keeps getting visions and whatnot. So that's our opening scene, which has next to nothing to do with the rest of the movie, by the way. The only relevance it has is that when the professor, Gabriel's his name from Big Bang Theory, that dude, he, like, when he's buying the VCR at this, like, flea market or whatever it is, he mentions, oh yeah, the person selling it said, oh, it belonged to this kid that died in a plane crash, like, 2 months ago. And that's it. That is the only relevance that opening scene had.
It's always important when you're buying a used thing that the person tells you exactly where it came from.
I don't get it though. Like, it just wouldn't that actually be more mysterious if he was just at this market and they came across the VCR?
Sure.
And they found the tape inside and it was like, ooh, what's this? And it was just a mystery. Like, this opening scene's just here for like flash and bang and like big set piece moment where they're playing.
Yeah. Well, now what I don't understand is why he was even trying to find a VCR. Like, it almost seems like
he wasn't looking for one.
Then why did he buy it?
Because he's seen it and he said he was impressed. What did he say? He said, oh, it's vintage or something like that. I don't think it was specific. Yeah, it wasn't specifically looking for a VCR.
The scene to me, like, it made it seem more purposeful. Like like there was a reason why he wanted this, and the girl he's talking to, it's also very weird how it doesn't feel like they know each other at first, and then you find out that this is like one of his students. It's very strange.
That he lives with, or at least has sex with. I don't know.
It seems like they're in some type of relationship. It's never really that clear.
No, I didn't think it was purposeful. I didn't think he was actually looking for a VCR. I think they were just there, and he came across. He was like, "Oh, VCR! I'm going to have a go at this."
So if that's the case, then this guy is super annoying. Because I'm just gonna have to assume that he makes like long soliloquies whenever he like finds something he wants to buy.
That's a
because he really is like going on about it. Like, it's not just like, oh, hey, VCR, I could use one of these. He, like you said, he makes this whole big thing about like, I don't know, back in the day, like, this was what we had to do. It's vintage.
The phrase he used to him is, back in the day, this was a technological revolution, I think was the phrase
There
he
you
used. I think that was what he said. And the girl who he's having
next?
sex
Is he
with,
gonna buy like a stick for fire? Like, ooh, hey.
and the girl who's having sex with, who's like 20 years younger than him, is just like, what? What is this? Some sort of like prehistoric Blu-ray? Like, what's going on? Shouldn't say that. I'm just, I'm extrapolating. But
from that scene, would you have had any idea that they know each other at all?
no, it feels like two strangers who ran into each other. That's how the scene starts. It feels like it starts that way. And I kind of felt like it was meant to be like an intentional thing. Like when it cut to the next scene, it was like, oh, they're together. But to make that work, you'd cut to them like kissing or something like that. You'd cut to them, but instead it's just her like getting dressed and leaving, and he happens to be in the next room like messing with the VCR. He's like playing with it with a screwdriver, trying to like get the tape out.
Yeah. And it's not, it really doesn't matter, probably making too much of it, but it's just one of those little things that confuses me, because it's like, what is their relationship exactly? Are they going out? It's a professor or student. Is he just like weirdly close with his students?
Tim, it's a fair complaint, because it's a clear... I mean, what is a movie? It's conveying information. That's what storytelling is. It's conveying information in a entertaining but economical manner. And that sounds like a weird word to use, but it is economical. It's how do you get the most information that's relevant into a scene? How do you portray that? How do you do it visually? Do you do it with dialogue? Do you do it... You get all these things. So when they don't give you the clear sense of what's going on, and sometimes it's intentional, sometimes there's misdirection.
Right.
But there's times like this when it just feels like I'm not sure if they're supposed to be a couple, and then when it cuts to the next scene, instead of going, oh, they are a couple, that's exciting because it flipped my expectation, you're like, I wasn't sure if that was meant to be my expectation. I'm confused by... Not confused in a... Like, obviously you understand it once it's there. It was just a confusing way of telling the story. And right away, you're... Right at the start of the movie as well, it puts you in this sense of, okay, I'm watching a film by people who couldn't even establish a simple relationship right at the start. So it just puts you in this bad place where you're like, okay, the rest of this movie's probably going to suck.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. We haven't even introduced the main guy, because obviously he watches the tape and some creepy stuff happens. For some reason, he's got this big sort of window that, like, his entire wall is like a big window looking outside of the city, and it's like raining, it's night, and the lightning flashes, and then it flashes, like the entire like image of the videotape like appears in the window for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. And it's also a fly flies out of his joint.
Yes. And then after all this, after the lightning and all that, that's when it cuts to the title and it says Rings. Why not after the plane? Yeah. If you wanted to do this big introduction, this big money moment of the plane going down, which you don't even really see, it ends in this stupid, typical Hollywood jump scare. Or not jump scare, but cliffhanger. Then surely the whole point of that is so that you can cut to the title at the end with confidence and say, yeah, this is Rings. But no, they hold it back and they save it for him watching. It almost feels like that. You could take that plane scene out of the movie.
Yeah.
You could cut it and it would affect nothing.
No, absolutely not.
It would affect absolutely nothing. And that, right away, again, it's non-economic storytelling. You've just put a scene that has no purpose. It doesn't create any excitement. You barely see Samara. And it ruins her later entrance, because the big money shot they have a little bit later when you finally see her come out of a TV, it's not great, but it's probably the most iconic looking thing in the movie. They clearly like the idea of the TV being on the floor and she's like pushing the TV up to get out. Yeah, kind of thing, and that's fine. Although even that they kind of ruined, because when the girl, the Gabriel's girl, like walks in the room and she's our time's almost up. Sky, I think her name was. There's like a dust sheet over the TV, and you can sort of see the light coming from it underneath, right? And I thought, oh, this is cool. This will look really cool when Samara comes through the TV, but she's still under the sheet. That'll look really fun. But then she pulls the sheet down, and I was like, oh, okay.
And also, I don't think this has happened before, but when he watches the tape, like crazy stuff starts happening right away. Like there's the fly, and then also it's raining outside, but it starts raining upside down.
That's right. Yeah, it rains upside down.
Which is like when has this ever happened? Like, yeah, when you watch the tape, you get the phone call like afterwards, but when has like crazy stuff started happening like 2 seconds, after you watch it?
Which deflates it all, because it just instantly feels like all this fantasy bullshit. Because one of the things that makes The Ring such an intriguing little idea is that it's a videotape that you just happen to come across. And then you get the phone call, it just says 7 days, and that's it. And you learn that other people have died, so you get scared. But it's all like that's the whole point. Is the whole point of the videotape was that it was a normal thing, and it was something that just had a curse to it, and you didn't even think of it as a curse. You just thought of it as, I don't know, this urban myth, this urban legend, and that gave it some cool feel because it was a normal thing. And but as soon as you start having raining upside down, you start having spooky ghost things going on, it just deflates it all, and it feels like some typical Hollywood bollocks. Now, Tim.
Yeah.
We have been speaking for about 30 minutes, and we've not even got to the introduction of the main characters. So,
God.
If I tell you to shut up repeatedly at certain points so we can keep moving, do not take offense to it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here for 5 hours.
It's hard because there's really so much to complain about in this movie.
So after the title card, we get introduced to our two main characters, Holt and...
Talk about a tone shift.
Holt and Julia. And it cuts to them. It's morning, it's daytime, and they're in bed. It's actually only 7 a.m. because the alarm goes off and it's 7 a.m. at one point in the scene, and it looks really bright for 7 a.m. But I guess it depends where you live. But it felt more like midday to me, given the brightness. But anyway, so
I don't know if I've hated two characters more in a long time.
Oh, I hated characters in Bye Bye Man more.
I don't know. This couple was way too into each other for me.
See, well, yeah, they were, but so we're introduced to them, and he's leaving for college, but she's not because she's staying to.
He tells her the story of some ancient Greek.
No, why is she staying again?
Terrible. Oh, he says something along the lines of I understand you have to do what you're doing for your mother, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think
which is never brought up.
Yeah, I don't think they even specify. Yeah, it's funny actually. She disappears for days after this, but she ends up getting drawn into the plot. And oh, this is another thing. After the plane scene, it comes up saying 6 weeks later or 6 months later or whatever. After this next scene that introduces these two characters, it then jumps another 6 months or 6 weeks.
I never had any sense of time in this movie.
No, there's two time skips, in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Anyway, so we have this scene introducing them, and they're all lovey-dovey, happy couple. He's leaving, she's not going. We then cut 6 weeks later, and we see that they have regular dates on Skype. So it feels like it's Apine from Unfriended a little bit here for a minute as they have a Skype call, and we get a jump scare as his friends jump in and take him away. She feels rejected because he's away to ignore her and do stuff at college, and then we see a montage of her not getting responses to her text messages and stuff like that, and she gets worried basically. Then there's a Skype call from Sky, funnily enough, looking for him, and she gets all worried. She just assumes he's cheating on her. At least that's what it feels like. That's what the assumption feels like it is. So she gets in her car and drives to whatever college he's at, whatever state he's in. She drives there, and she creeps into the lecture hall because he mentioned in one scene in one of the Skype calls, oh, this biology professor I've got is pretty cool, which is Gabriel, and we see that he's still alive. So clearly something's okay, and she goes down to try and speak to him, and he just brushes her off, and it feels like there's some sort of weird conspiracy to an extent.
Yeah.
And then she acts like a crazy person and follows him. Up until this point, there is no evidence to her that there was anything criminal activity, that there's people,
Why wouldn't you just assume that your boyfriend's a dick at this point?
Yeah, he seems like he's just been a complete douchebag. And the reason why I'm going through all this in such painstaking detail is because when he does show up 5 minutes later, after the Sky gets killed by Samara, and we get the whole scene where the Samara comes out of TV, blah, 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 and he shows up to get her because he realizes she's around. So it turns out he was in this experiment, he's watched the tape, and he's got another 12 hours left to live, or whatever. basically the entire thing, that the entire like 15 minutes we spent in her looking for him, oh my boyfriend's missing, because you think this is going to be the plot of the movie. I didn't think we were going to see the boyfriend again. I thought she was going to find out that he was dead, and it was going to be her own mission from then on. But no, she finds him, and this whole mystery of where he's been, it just gets dropped. Like, there's one line where she says to him, you know, I think he mentioned Sky or whatever, and she says, "Oh, were you seeing her? Were you cheating on me?" Or I can't remember what the line was, but it was basically asking if he was cheating. And he's like, "No, it's not like that," and it's never brought up again. She never even questions or reacts. They wake up the next morning together, like everything's fine.
Well, I don't even understand why he was going into hiding in the first place.
That's the other thing, yeah. As soon as he does come back into it, and he just says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was avoiding your calls and texts. I did this to protect you from all of this." Why?
If you wanted to protect her, why not just be like, "Hey, everything's fine. I'm just really busy. I'll give you a call tomorrow."
Yeah, responding to text does not put her in danger. In fact, not responding to the text is what's put her in danger, because that's what made her come here. And then she watches the tape to save him, so she's now infected, and they set up that weirder stuff's happening, the tape's evolving. And then, as much as I hated all this so far, I hated her sneaking into the research base where they had all the timers up, and they had for some reason they were projecting the ring image onto a wall, because have it playing in a loop for everyone to see. That's a good idea, tits.
It's also like a weird like secret research lab in the middle of this college campus. It's just like, does no one else know about this?
Yeah, Holt has a key for the elevator. To get to floor number 7 on the elevator, you have to use this little key.
This really bugged me. Like in the first movie, I felt like there was much more believable that the main character was, researching and finding all this stuff out.
Well, she was a reporter.
Yeah, but like in this movie, she's just like the luckiest person ever, because everything she ever needs, she always just like finds like right on a wall. Like she just looks and it's like, she gets to his place and she's like, huh. And then just looks on the wall and it's like, oh, here's his class schedule and a key. I guess I'll just take it. Who knows?
See, it's funny, you say luck. I would say, yeah, okay, that's just luck. But once we actually get to her, after her watching the tape, I feel like the rest of the movie is just, oh, she keeps having visions of things in the tape. Oh, there's something that looks like there's something in the tape. And then she looks at it and it advances the plot. That happens like 10 times once they start investigating. But I don't want to skip to that. There's something I really need to talk about.
Okay.
She watches the tape. They go to Gabriel, and he analyzes stuff, whatnot, whatever. He then says to her, "This image here wasn't on the tape before. Like, there's stuff being added to the images, and also they bring up a plot point where she can't copy the file, because they've established that it's on a computer now. It's like a QuickTime file, and to copy it, they just copy it like you wouldn't like copy any file on a computer, and then someone else can watch it, and that's you cost free. They set up the idea that she can't copy hers, like the rules are changing, but they never bring it up again. It never affects anything. It's never brought up, because like I say, after this again, they never bring up the fact that she's going to die soon. It's never a concern. So yeah, Gabriel's like, oh, this image wasn't here, but when I looked at it, I found something else. I'm like, okay, what did you find? I was talking to the characters in the movie, you see, as I was watching. Of course it was. And he's like, there's a video within the video. And that was the line that, as much as I was hating it, and I thought these characters were cookie cutter, but not even cookie cutter, they have no personality. There's nothing, like, Julia. Tell me one thing about Julia. Describe her. Without saying how she looks. Don't describe how she looks. Describe Julia. What is her character? Who is she?
She loves her boyfriend. That's all. That's.
Is there anything else? Yeah.
That's her only character trait.
What about him? What about Holt? What character is he? Without describing how he looks.
He loves his girlfriend.
That is the only characteristic either of these two people have. They have no single other element to them whatsoever. They exist entirely just to function as cardboard cutouts for the rest of the movie. right? So as much as I was hating all that for these reasons, this was terrible already. The moment he said there was a video within a video, I was like, I'm out. This is garbage. This is garbage. You're doing garbage sequel things to add more mystery when there is none. And of course he then plays the video that's within the video that's hidden in there somewhere.
Now, I'm not a very tech savvy guy. Is this even something like people can do, or is this just like dumb? Like whoever wrote the script was like, "Oh, this sounds like a cool, interesting thing."
I mean, it depends, because like, you can seamlessly branch video, right? And I mean, I don't know if you can do it in a QuickTime file, admittedly, but like you get DVDs and Blu-rays with seamless branching. So I guess it's not completely ridiculous to say, oh, there's a secret bit in between that maybe there's just not an option in the menu, so you have to go in and like go into the coding and like dig it out yourself manually. So that part, okay, but I mean, this is obviously knowing the fact that this is magically added extra stuff, because this thing was never there before.
Yeah.
But the idea that Samara's...
Well, the video got pregnant.
Yeah. The idea that Samara's put extra stuff in the video, but then he has to go digging to get to it, is weird. Like, why does someone have to go digging? If she wants someone to see extra part of footage, because the entire movie then plays out like, oh, she wants Julia to find something. She wants her to solve the case. Why would she hide it like this? Why would she hide it in this weird way that only a tech person could dig it out? It makes no sense. It's stupid.
And I don't like this dichotomy of, on the one hand, she is a crazy evil spirit that will kill anyone because she's like so angry and she just wants this curse to keep spreading and spreading. But on the other hand, she wants Julia to solve the case so her spirit can be set free. It's like, no, you can't have it both ways. You're either crazy vengeful, or you're like a gentle spirit that's trapped and needs to be released. You know, I don't know. I thought it was like a very weird juxtaposition of.
And I have to say, I kind of hate that. The latter one there, the whole I want to be free, like discover my past so that I can be at rest.
Yeah.
It's not that there's anything wrong with that inherently, and I'm sure there's good movies that I like that have used it, but I feel like 9 times out of 10 when I see that, it's in a shitty sequel that's trying to add more to a plot that didn't have more to add. Because she keeps getting visions of this woman. They go to like they have this idea. Oh, maybe we should burn their body. Oh, where did their body get buried? And I'm like, wait, didn't they find the body in a well? And they did. They bring this up later that after the body was found, it went to this small town.
Yeah.
So Julia and Holt go to this small town where they spend the rest of the movie. That's where the rest of the movie takes place. And they go to the end. They find out some information. The woman that Julia has been seeing in her visions is this woman who went missing like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever.
Now, there's a very important plot point that we skipped over.
Oh, by all means, tell me.
After she watches the video, she gets a call, of course, and she picks up the phone and it burns her hand, and she has a mysterious burn on it that might be something more.
It's Braille. Let's just cut to the chase. Right. There's Braille burned into her hand. And wouldn't you believe it, we meet a blind character at some point.
Oof. Yeah.
Oh, God, I hate this movie. So they go investigating, and she keeps having, like, she sees a vision of the woman on the road. She sees a vision of a bird that was in the video. She then sees a vision of like where the grave should be. It really cracked me up, right? So they go to the church where they believe that they took her body. They came out of the church, and it's not operating as a traditional church anymore. It's got like self-help groups and stuff inside, but it's not actually operating as a church. She comes out and she has another one of her visions where she zones out, and she has this vision, and she goes, "Holt, I know where the body is. It's in there." And she points to the cemetery. She needed a vision to tell her that they put her body in the cemetery.
A vision and the help of maybe some of the worst CGI birds I've seen in a really long time.
That's also true. And they go through the cemetery. There's this stupid scene as well where she crawls in. They find her crypt which or a grave where she the number's been scrubbed off, but she still sees it because, again, vision. Like, everything that was in the tape is another part. It's just a magic plot device. Every time they get to the point where they don't know where to go, she sees something that was in the videotape, and it lets her know where to go. And that's it. And she goes out of the crypt, and she imagines that it shuts on her, and she's in there stuck with Samara, and she finds a well in the crypt, which is only meant to be, it's only meant to be the size of a coffin. It's not big, but she ends up crawling through and getting to a well, just because we need to have ring-like imagery, because we have nothing else to do in the movie.
Yeah.
Whole thing's pointless.
It's like, it seems like at this point Samara's attacking her, which is just weird, because it's like, again, all right, do you want to kill me, or do you want me to set you free? Like, what do you want me to do?
Yep, I agree with that synopsis.
And is this the point where she, like, finds the, like, underground, like, basement prison room?
Or is that a little later? Oh, that's later.
Okay.
That's later. We have to meet Blind Man first.
Right.
They get caught in the cemetery, so we go to Blind Man Burke, his name is, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who is one of those actors where he's good sometimes, depending on what he's in, and then sometimes he's in absolute crap like this, and he just feels like he's hamming it up. And he's this blind guy, and they ask him about stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, I've heard of that girl, I've heard of Samara. And honestly, the scene's just kind of cryptic, and he talks about stuff. It really goes nowhere.
See, this was entertaining for me because there's a story arc where in Daredevil where the Kingpin goes blind. So I just kept imagining that this was the Kingpin.
It's funny because even I was laughing about it just because I was like, the Kingpin went blind. And that was amusing because he was obviously Daredevil's nemesis.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So they go back to their inn, their bed and breakfast, whatever it is. The little... It's not a motel. It's more like a big house that this woman runs. Yeah. More of a bed and breakfast. And this is when they split up, and this was like a sort of continuous thing that started to happen for the rest of the movie, where they kept being apart for some reason, and not telling each other where they were going, which was really dumb. Actually, I have a really by this point in the movie, actually, they try and leave at one point, and Gabriel discovered something, and he couldn't get Holt on the phone. It's a running thing throughout the movie. At the start of the movie, Julia can't get Holt on the phone. At this halfway through the movie, Gabriel can't get Holt on the phone, and he phones him and he gets his voicemail. He's like, "Look, I've discovered something. I'm not going to tell you in your voicemail just in case it'll become handy later. I'm just going to hang up and I'm going to come and get you." And they end up like trying to leave town, and they find out that Gabriel was almost here and his car crashed. So fate intervened, or Samara intervened and killed him on the way. Right, fine, whatever. What I want to get to though is at the end of the movie, right? Not to skip ahead. I don't want to talk about what actually happens at the end, but at the end of the movie, when all what he was going to tell them all starts to unravel. At the end of the movie, so they wake up again like they did at the start of the movie, in bed, sunny. Julia goes for a shower, and he goes to his phone, and it plays, and it's like, one voicemail. Oh, what's this? And it's Gabriel's message before he died about, I'm coming. There's something you need to know. I've figured out the message or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the Braille, of course, that he figured out. And all I could think was, this is the first time he's checking his phone, because it's not even like when he tried to phone him before, he was in the midst of an action thing or whatever. He was in the midst of a dangerous situation. It was in the middle of just casually investigating, right? Okay, maybe he's busy at the time, right? But when it cuts to this new scene at the end of the movie, it's like another couple of days. It's like, we're waking up and we're back at home. They've obviously drove all the way home from this town, and this is the first time he's looking at his goddamn phone. If this idiot used his goddamn phone like a normal human being, they wouldn't have discovered this late. Which leads to this weirder problem. I feel like this movie liked cell phones because they kept using them as torches, flashlights. They kept using the lights to light their way, and they kept using them in that sense. But at the same time, they never actually used their phones for actual phones or texting or whatever. They constantly weren't in communication. So this is the point of the movie that I was getting at here, where after Gabriel's died and they've stayed in the town because they want to keep investigating, Holt sneaks off in the middle of the night and goes and talks to the keeper of the inn, because he wants to ask her about because she knew the girl who disappeared, so he goes to talk to her about it, and Julia then decides to go and investigate the church because she has another vision, because of course she does, because we have to the plot moving again, so vision. And they never tell each other where they are. They don't know where they are. She goes and does this herself. She's going to creepy locations, she's going to creepy basements and what else, and then they can't find each other. And at no point when he I need to go and find Julia, does he try and phone her. He doesn't pull out his phone and try to phone her. He just runs about town. He runs to the church and tries to get in. He runs elsewhere and runs to the blind man's house, because it turns out the blind man was the priest. Turns out the priest kidnapped this girl he had impregnated. It turns out that they gave birth to Samara, because in the American ring continuity, Samara was an orphan who was adopted, but she's the victim of a priest rape, and the mother was presumably killed after she gave birth, or committed suicide. I can't remember what it said, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? Who gives a shit?
There's so many dumb stuff to comment on. You're absolutely right. All the cell phone stuff is mind-boggling, especially in this situation where it feels like they were apart for so long and they were so worried about each other, and then they finally find each other and they have this reunion. But then it's we'll go off and we'll do our own thing, especially when we're in this big deep mystery where our lives are on the line and who knows what the hell's gonna happen. But let's not be in constant communication with each other.
It just feels like such lazy writing. It's just forgetting that these simple things exist. The first thing he would do, because he runs back to the inn first because he thinks she's still there, which is fair enough, right? But as soon as he gets there, as soon as he goes out of that bedroom and she's not there, the first thing you would do is pull out your phone and message her, phone her, try and find out where she is. That's the first thing you would do.
A quick scene that made me laugh is when he first runs into the inn, and he's talking to the innkeeper, about her niece and Evelyn and stuff, and they have that photo on the wall that has the priest in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And he runs in and he pulls the photo from the wall and then looks at it and then throws it down. I'm like, why'd you have to pull it from the wall? I don't know. It just seemed so weird to me. You just you can look at it, but then I don't know. It was weird overreaction.
Because it just makes it more dramatic. Just to get back to the point I was getting at though is, so he doesn't pull out his phone. He should pull out his phone. That is what any human being in that situation would do. But he can't do that, because if he does that, he'll know he's got a voicemail, and that'll ruin the end of the movie. So we have to just have him not do it, because the script is that shit, and we have to just be lazy.
Now, you want to talk about lazy revelations? Let's talk about when she's in this room where underneath the church where Evelyn was being kept, and she's looking on the wall, and if you haven't figured out yet that Evelyn is Samara's mother, on the wall are all these S names crossed out until you get to the only one that's not, which is Samara. Are you telling me that this pregnant woman that's being held captive is writing down baby names, all that begin with an S, and just going, no, I don't like that, I'll cross it out. Nah, not that one either. Samara, a name that no one's ever had. I like that.
Stupid. This entire movie is stupid.
It's so dumb.
So she finds this basement. She ends up going round to the blind man. She doesn't know it's the priest. She doesn't know he's the priest. We find that out in the other scene with Holt, and he's looking for her, and she discovers throughout the scene that it's him, because he says stuff and it becomes apparent. And he pulls it. He pulls it like a sort of not a scarf, but one of his robe sort of pieces that's got a cross on it, and he wraps it around his fist. He's like, he's going to beat her up with the power of Christ. He's going to punch her, but the power of Christ compels you, bitch.
No, there's a weird. There's something I was confused about around this part, where he says something along the lines of, she didn't take my eyes, I did, and then he takes his glasses off, but it, I was expecting to have you're gonna see some weird messed up face, but he just has just cloudy eyes. So I didn't understand, like, how did he blind himself? Why was that supposed to be a dramatic reveal? Like, I thought, like, if he just had like these gaping, like, wounded sockets, I'd be like, oh, that's crazy. He plucked his own eyes out. That's what I thought they were going for. But it's
I guess he just poured something in them that would make him go blind or whatever. Which I don't know. I actually kind of like the idea that someone blinded themselves to save themselves from the curse, because if they can't see, because the whole thing is that you see her and she gives you a heart attack.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can't see her, then that's fine. Of course, that goes out the window at the end when apparently Samara has the superpower to make him see again, and then he dies instantly at the end. So that's fine.
Now, another thing, I don't know if you felt this, but once all the stuff with Evelyn and everything and the priest is revealed, I started to get confused whenever he would talk, because he kept saying stuff like, she wanted this, she did this, but then I kept getting confused, like, wait, is he talking about Evelyn or is he talking about Samara now? Like, you introduce, like, the idea of this other, like, woman, and
no, I was talking about Evelyn the whole time.
I don't know if it's just, like, confusing.
I don't think to be fair, I didn't think that was confusing. I think he was talking about Evelyn the whole time. I think Samara he put up for adoption, like, almost immediately.
And I'd have to go back and, like, look at what the exact lines were.
Third time? All right, if you want. That's up to you, Tim. I'm not doing it.
Trust me, I don't want to. But no, there were, like, a couple of different lines where he would say, like, she blah 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 blah, and I was like, wait, is he talking about Evelyn now, or is he talking about Samara? I don't know. I just thought it was weird.
It depends what he was talking about, because sometimes he was talking about, like, after the fact, like, because there were times when he was talking about Samara, but he was talking about more of her as a ghost, like, in, like, recent times, because he talks about how when they buried her, like, it brought hell to the town, so they had to move her or something like that, and all I could think was, but she was in the well, and, like, it wasn't like, because in the first movie, like, in the well where like, it was a motel or like a cabin house sort of thing that was there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that area was, like, constantly under duress because of Samara being buried there. So again, it just felt like something that had been added in to give us bullshit reasons for things, making it feel bigger and more epic, when that's exactly what you don't want in a horror movie. Because the reason why The Ring works, the reason why the videotape works, the reason why Sadako or Samara work is because it's simple. Simple is scary. Complicated is not scary. Complicated is convoluted, and convoluted is just annoying.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know if people feel like they're, like they're afraid to tell a simple story. Like, people aren't gonna like it if all it is just a videotape that kills people. Like, we gotta throw, like, a plane and the internet and research
and again, the internet thing's wasted. It's just kind of hinted at the end, even though I'm like, surely that's what you do. Surely that's what you, if you're gonna make a Ring movie in 2017, that's what you do. Someone uploads it to YouTube. What do you do with that? Like, again, I don't really want them to do that, because I think, again, it takes away from the, because that whole idea of the first movie is you just come across a videotape, there's something creepy on it, and then you die because of it. There's something so simple and so, it's that idea of stumbling upon it. Don't get me wrong, you can have that on the internet, you can stumble upon a stupid video at 4 AM, and that's kind of get, like, its own little vibe to it. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same, because this was something me and Connor talked about when we did Channel Zero on Almost Cancelled, the sci-fi show. And we talked about how in that show, like, there's this old, like, kids TV show that used to air like illegally, like, on the weird frequencies on TV, and we spoke about how there's something about analog, like old TV signals and old radio signals, which lends itself to being creepy, because with digital, it's all data, it's all, like, bits and stuff, and you know exactly, this is 10 megabytes, you know exactly what's there, it's the exact thing. But with TV and film, or not TV and film, but TV and radio, like old school analog, like, signals and frequencies, there's, like, digital, there's, like, noise, there's, like, fuzziness, there's, like, the idea that there's something in the signal that's, like, hidden is there. That's not there with digital. Digital, I mean, sure, they always tell us they can code things in, or there's videos within videos, but there's something just about the simplicity of analog that lends itself to having like the hidden stuff in there, and the idea of messages like mixed in the static. You know, static's a very scary thing, which, by the way, why does all the videos still end in static even though it's digital? And I know the recording they probably took ended with static, but even the video within the video that Gabriel takes out of the new part still ends with static.
Well, you know, Samara has an MO at this point. She she wants to stay on brand.
The sad truth is that's right. It's just not the character's choice, it's the studio or director's choice. Oh no, we have to have static because that's the whole thing. It's like, but you're cheating it. The reason why it worked in the first movie is because that's what actually be there when the tape ends. And it gives it that creepy feeling. When it's forced and it shouldn't be there, you just leave us going, wait, that's wrong. That feels out of place. It's taking me out of the moment. And there you go. Also, there's a problem with the fact that at the end of the movie, like, the villain turns into the blind guy. It turns into a really shitty version of Don't Breathe, with her sneaking around the house and him trying to find her. And he starts beating the shit out of her and he's strangling her, and she tries and fights back. But the biggest problem, though, apart from the fact that it's a really bad version of Don't Breathe, which is a really good movie, in fact, I'm actually kind of suspicious. I think part of the reason they might have pushed this is because Don't Breathe came out in August and they went, oh, wait a minute, our last act is this, and this was much better. We have to distance. Distance is the thing we want.
Possibly, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. But, yeah, so Samara is kind of the hero at the end because she saves the girl. This is a problem. This is a problem. This isn't creepy. And she comes out of the phone, which, by the way, I thought was shot horribly. I thought, no, like, so he's strangling the girl, so if we're committed to the fact that she's showing up and she's going to kill him, fine, okay, I'll accept that. He's strangling her in the foreground, and I'm like, oh, you could just have this as this one shot, and just have her slowly come up in the background, and it would look gorgeous, it would be creepy, it would work. But no, the camera cut every 3 seconds. It couldn't stay still. It had to keep cutting, and it just deflated the entire scene of any creepiness. It was cut like a frantic action scene, even though it should have been a slow, creepy, moving thing, and it just ruined the whole thing. And anything they could have had in that scene was gone. Before we go into the final scene, Timmy, is there anything that you want to talk about the rest of the movie that I've glossed over or skipped or...
I mean, there's so many other dumb minor stuff I can bring up, but nothing urgent. Let's just get to the end and end this nightmare.
I appreciate your candor, Timothy. All right, so we cut to what must be at least some days later because they're back at home by the looks of it. If not her home, then his home. But either way, it's home. So they had to drive back, so it's been days, which makes the whole phone thing really stupid. He's not looked at his phone in days. But she goes for a shower, he gets up and he looks at his phone and he hears about this, and he's like, oh, it's Braille. And he looks at the scan of it and he goes to like a translator online, which I didn't know this existed. This makes sense that it exists, because I thought, how surely it'd be difficult to translate Braille. And then it goes to this website and I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. You can just punch in where the dots are and it'll translate it for you. It'll tell you what each of the letters are. I actually think that's cool, and it's probably a real thing. It seems like a real thing. Cool. And as he's typing it, basically he discovers Jeff Johns' plans for DC Comics when he's typing it in.
I was gonna say you must have been pretty excited when you saw like, oh, Rebirth.
That was the best thing that happened in comics last year. Excellent. But as this is happening, she's in the shower and she starts coughing up hair, and she's like pulling the hair out of her mouth. And the plot twist at the end is that she is taking over her body. She is now a living vessel. Because do you know what I hate about it is that the movie's so up its own ass. Because as it's happening, as he's like typing it in, it keeps flashing back to all these moments in the movie where Gabriel said something. Oh well, what if when the soul leaves, it tries to find another place to go, and it cuts back to D'Onofrio's character that, oh yeah, well, just because you had a vision doesn't mean you understand what the vision was for. And like, it kept cutting to all these things as if we were meant to be impressed that the twist was unraveling, and I was just sitting there going, is this over yet? I want to leave, you absolute assholes. And ends, he discovers the word rebirth in the other room. She goes up against the mirror, it's all steamy, she wipes the mirror, and it's like Samara instead of her. Cut to black, cut to credits. The director's name came up, and I think before the director's name even left the screen, I was already halfway up the aisle. I moved so quickly. I was like, I am so unimpressed. Piss off. Why do all of these sequels have to involve a ghost trying to come back into a real body? When it's fine if that's the idea. If that's the original movie idea, that the whole thing is a ghost is trying to possess someone, fine, it's a possession movie. That's cool. But they seem to always try and force it into sequels of movies where that was never the point. The point of The Ring was not Samara or Sadako trying to possess someone. She didn't care.
Yeah. Also, as that's going on, he also notices on the computer the file that she had tried to erase before is now getting copied and sent to like everyone on the internet.
Yeah, we're back to the Unfriended rip-off stuff where it's just doing it on its own, and it unplugs the computer, he unplugs everything, and it's still doing it, and it's like spreading around the internet, and I'm like, that would have been a better premise for the movie if you just did this. Which, actually, just to go back to one of my problems with the concept of the movie, and again, this goes back to them forgetting the whole, I need to find him thing. It just drops that and turns into a regular Ring movie. The whole secret society, this working, or the secret experiment where they're all doing the Ring stuff, that's irrelevant to the rest of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as soon as they actually go to the small town to investigate, it just becomes about them investigating the past. The actual whole, that core idea that they had where, we've got this professor working with all these students to do these experiments, it doesn't matter at all. Again, you could completely cut this. You could literally change the entire first 40 minutes of this movie to just, he goes to college, she goes to follow, she acts, in fact, you could take that out as well, actually, what I'm saying. You don't even need that. All you need is that she somehow sees the tape, they start researching it, and it leads them to the town. There you go. You could do the movie like that. The entire first half of this movie is pointless and leads to goddamn nothing. And then the second half is stupid.
Two final things that I want to bring up.
Yes.
One, while we're on the subject of research, I kept thinking, like, what is he researching? Because all you can really do is have someone watch the tape and then copy it to make sure someone else watches it. But what else? Like, where else does the research go from there?
He says he's trying to prove that there's a soul.
Okay.
Just accept that, Timmy. There's nothing else I can tell you. There is nothing else I can tell you.
All right. So that's number one. Number two, now, would you say that the whole mystery of what, that scar on her hand, it's Braille, what does it say? You would say that that's supposed to be kind of a mystery, throughout like the second half of the movie, and then it's supposed to be a surprise at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I saw the test screening for this movie,
there was a blind man there, and he knew what it said the whole time.
Although that would be impressive if he somehow saw it on the screen.
That was the joke, Tim.
I know, I gotcha. But all right, so the test screening I saw was on the same day that the trailer came out. So I saw the movie before I saw the trailer. Now, after I saw it, I was curious to see like what the trailer looked like. So I watched it, and if you watch the first trailer that was released, they tell you that it means rebirth. There's a part in the trailer where they're like, you have a scar on your hand, it's Braille, and someone's like, it means rebirth. And I'm like, all right, if this was a movie I cared about, I would be super pissed if I saw the trailer beforehand and it spoiled it.
I think that's fair.
So, it's not worth getting into a split level of spoiler discussion. But I don't know, I just thought that was crazy that it's set up to be this mystery in the movie, and they blatantly just tell you what it is in the trailer.
I can't argue with that. That's a very fair point. I don't remember it.
That's the thing. I mean,
the only thing I remember from the trailer was the plane stuff, which turned out to be just the stupid intro, which again, you could cut, it would make no difference to anything. There is so much of this movie you could cut. And admittedly, that would leave it far too short for a movie, but that would be better, because then it'd be shorter. Because this
and this was long.
This was 100.
This crappy movie.
Yeah, it was 100 minutes, which is a little bit longer than most crappy movies. They tend to at least be short. It's like the mercy they perform on is that they'll at least all be less than 90 minutes. But here we are. Right, let's wrap this up. Ratings, Tim. What are you giving it?
Kind of flip flop in between like a 2 and a 2.5. But this really angers me, so I guess I'll go the lower and give it a 2.
If this is your first time watching a Screams After Midnight, let me point out that this is out of 10, not 5. Out of 10.
Right.
So I just wanted to make that clear, just for anyone who's watching goes, well, that's kind of generous given everything they just said. Yeah. So would you give it, sorry? 2.5?
No, I'll go with 2.
Go with 2. Yeah, I'm going with 2. I can't give it a 1 because that'd be the third one I've given this year, which, given that we're only in February, it would be really, really weird. But also because it is at least better than Bye Bye Man and It Watches. It just is, because at the very least it doesn't. As much as I kept saying scenes could be cut, at least as they were playing, I didn't know they could be cut. Like, it wasn't until later on and I looked back and went, wait a minute, that wasn't relevant to the rest of the movie. At least as they were playing, it had the pretense that it was building to something.
Yeah.
So I can say that, and I can at least say that it didn't. Like, there's scenes in those other movies where it is literally just characters talking to each other to buy time.
Yeah.
It's just to draw the runtime out. So I guess this method of stretching out by having more stupid plot that doesn't make a difference is at least slightly better than that. Still terrible. Yeah. It's garbage. It's a garbage movie. I'll tell you this. There's a couple of Japanese Ring movies we didn't get to because we didn't know they existed, called Sadako and Sadako 2, which were both released in 3D, might I add. We'll probably do them at some point. We'll probably do the other Ju-on movies that we didn't do at some point, but not for a long time. I need a break. I am sick.
Please.
I am sick of Ring. I am sick of Grudge.
All I want is I'll take one more movie, Sadako in space. Unless anything else, I don't want to see. If they do one in space, I'm back in. But as of right now, please just let it die.
And do you want something really upsetting, Timmy?
What's that?
This movie not performing well is probably half the reason why the Friday the 13th reboot was cancelled.
Oh.
Because
that's upsetting.
Because it's also Paramount that's involved with it. I think they were involved with this. I can't even remember who. Yeah, it was Paramount.
Yeah, because that's the logo then.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was theirs. This underperformed. The other half reason is that Friday the 13th, the rights are apparently going to revert back to New Line at some point. So that was maybe the other reason. So at the very least, maybe once it's back at New Line, we can get a reboot there, or a 13th. I don't even want a reboot. I just want another sequel.
I'd be happy, with anything.
Just set it before Jason X, so it's still on Earth, and that's fine. Yeah. Come on, it's the 13th one. We need a 13th Friday the 13th. It's Destiny. Yeah. We can wrap it up after that, but we need a 13th.
And it really needs to be released on a Friday the 13th. That's one of the reasons why I was so excited.
Tim, they always release them on Friday the 13th. Okay.
Good.
I'm pretty sure almost if not all of them, almost all of the movies were released on Friday the 13th.
That's the only thing that sucks. So if it gets delayed, it's like, all right, well, when's the next month it's gonna have a Friday the 13th?
Oh, it's like every 3 or 4 months, Tim.
Yeah, well, you want it now.
It's not that rare. We get 2 or 3 of them a year. It's not that.
Yeah, but that's still 3 or 4 months is still a long time. It's not like when something gets pushed back a couple of weeks or something.
Yeah, but Tim, it's not been delayed now. They've said it's done. They've just scrapped it.
That's sucks.
But hopefully, once it's back at New Line, we can get the ball rolling. Honestly, the real reason I'm disappointed though is we almost had a new Friday the 13th and a new Halloween in the same month. We almost had that. So I'll just have to settle for Halloween and a new Saw and a new Chucky and whatever else is coming out in October, because there's a few things they've announced. Insidious 4, that's also out in October. That should be fun.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, I'm digressing. I'm talking about things that are more interesting, because Rings certainly is not. But there you go, that's Rings. Let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments below if you've seen it. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot if you do. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz, or you can get me on Twitter individually at Wibble89, or you can get Tim on Twitter at Tim Vergulish. And that's us. So thank you very much for watching. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time.